story of the rock and roll Jew. The rock and roll Jew went down to the forge where the hobbit lived. To ask the hobbit for a hit of his pipe, but the hobbit said no. He's fresh out of tobacco. So kindly came out the rabbit, claiming he's gonna go up with a kind heart to get some tobacco up in the hill. Wild, and he laughed. Then came out the turtle with a spoon in his hand, claiming to be a good cook, as long as you don't talk about turtle soup. And he put a white stone in the palm of the rock and roll Jew's hand, said that stone represents rock and roll. 15 minutes later, the rabbit came back, showing good news and bad news. Bad news, no tobacco. Good news. On the way back, he met up with the wizard of the hit rock and roll band, the Black Sabbath. He was given some sweet leaf like the hit rock and roll song from the hit rock and roll band, especially for Mr. Hobbit rock and roll. So they put the sweet leaf inside of the pipe, and they turned it on, huffed and puffed like if it was tobacco. 15 minutes later, they look at each other's faces, laughing, smiling, and giggling, and asking why there's rings of smoke around all of the trees of the fantasy forest, like Led Zeppelin speaks of in one of their hit rock and roll songs, Stairway to Heaven. Then comes out the turtle again with a grin on his face, and he beat the rabbit in the race. In that there's a full moon rising, maybe a bad one like the Cleveland Clearwater Revival speaker. Another hit rock and roll band with a hit rock and roll song, bad moon rising, so he might die. So he warned the rock and roll Jew, told best he leave the fantasy forest. The rock and roll Jew took his advice and left. Found himself on Third and La Brea by the temples of the Jews, which Jesus Christ calls the synagogues of Satan. Not because they're bad people, just Satan means money, and money's a defense while they're reading. And then he reaches into his coat pocket and he finds a fifth of Jack Daniels, and he takes it out, takes a big swig in the name of the band in remembrance of the Doors and Jim Morrison. And then he thinks about crossing the street to go to the other side to the reading room, and that's a Jimi Hendrix cross where traffic goes through his rock. While walking across the street off the point of his rock and roll Rabbi she coincidentally bites it and bounces a white stone and rolls. And touch of the chief cornerstone, which was rejected, and now the chief of the corner went through his mind. Whatever falls upon will be broken, whatever falls upon it, on top of it will be crushed and grinded into powder. While getting to the other side, he also remembered the hit rock and roll band Rolling Stones, and Mick Jagger did somewhat of a dance similar to him. And he said to himself, hey, hey, my, rock and roll's here to stay and never die. He remembered Neil Young, and then the most peculiar thing happened. The rock and roll Jew became a kilo of cocaine on the corner. All the other Jews said because he fell upon the white stone, the stone grinded him into powder. The white cocaine powder was being blown away in the wind. And one of the bums sitting there on the street corner, listening to his radio, the song from the hit rock and roll singer Eric Clapton, Cocaine, came on.